Okay, so you're thinking about reading The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. Um, but you're not sure if it's worth your time today.
Right.
I get it.
Yeah.
Classics can be intimidating,
Mm-hmm.
but we're here to help.
Absolutely.
We're going to take a deep dive into this one.
Yeah.
Using some reviews, some reader comments,
Mm-hmm.
even some cool insights from literary criticism
Right. Mm-hmm.
to help you figure out
Yep.
if Tom Sawyer is the right read for you.
And we'll go beyond a simple yes or no.
Right.
We'll look at the writing style, the themes,
Okay.
and even how it compares to books you might already love.
Yeah.
So by the end of this, you'll know
Right.
if Tom Sawyer deserves a spot on your reading list.
Sounds good to me.
All right.
Let's jump in.
Let's do it.
Now, I've heard Tom Sawyer is funny,
Uh-huh.
but can a book written in 1876 really make me laugh today?
It can, actually.
Really?
And it's not just slapstick humor.
Okay.
Twain was a master of satire. He uses Tom's point of view to poke fun at the adult world. Their romantic notions, how they get hung up on appearances.
Right.
It's like he's saying kids see through that stuff, and that's still funny today.
Okay, so there's some depth to the humor.
Right.
But isn't it just a bunch of boys getting into trouble?
Well,
That doesn't seem very relatable to me.
you'd be surprised.
Okay.
Think about the scene where Tom tricks his friends into whitewashing the fence. It's hilarious, sure,
Right.
but it also shows how easily we can be influenced by what others think.
I see.
That's something we all deal with, even as adults.
I guess I can see that. But what about the portrayal of race?
Mm-hmm.
I've heard it's problematic.
That's a valid concern,
Right.
and it's something to be aware of going into the book. The language does reflect the time period, and it can be jarring for modern readers.
Yeah.
However, even back then, the book sparked conversations about race.
Cool, really?
It's worth considering whether the book simply reflects the prejudices of its time, or if Twain was trying to challenge them in some way.
That's a good point. It sounds like there's more to this book than meets the eye.
I think so.
But is it just for boys?
Not at all.
Okay.
While the main characters are boys,
Right.
the themes are universal.
Right.
That yearning for adventure, figuring out who you are,
Yeah.
navigating those first pangs of love.
Okay.
I've read plenty of reviews from women who love Tom Sawyer.
Really?
They connect with the characters
Yeah.
and find the story relatable.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I guess everyone experiences those things growing up, regardless of gender.
Right.
But if I'm being honest, I'm not a huge fan of classics.
Okay.
I find them a bit stuffy and hard to get through.
Yeah.
Is Tom Sawyer like that?
Actually, Twain's writing is surprisingly accessible.
Okay.
It's conversational, almost like you're listening to someone tell you a story.
Uh-huh.
He uses a lot of humor and dialect,
Right.
which might take a little getting used to.
Yeah.
But once you're in the groove, it flows really nicely.
All right, that's good to know.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see Tom Sawyer in a new light here, but I'm still not convinced it's something I'd enjoy.
Okay.
Can you give me a comparison to a book I might already like?
Have you ever read Little Women?
Sure.
I love that book. Well, Tom Sawyer and Little Women share a lot in common,
Great.
even though they seem very different on the surface.
Okay.
They both capture the spirit of childhood in a particular time and place.
I see.
Little Women focuses on young women during the Civil War era, while Tom Sawyer is set in the pre-Civil War South following the adventures of boys.
Right.
Both offer valuable glimpses into American history and culture, and both explore those timeless themes of family friendship and coming of age.
So you're saying that if I enjoyed the coming-of-age aspect of Little Women, I might appreciate Tom Sawyer for similar reasons.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They both deal with that transition from childhood innocence to the complexities of adulthood, but from different perspectives.
Interesting. I'm starting to see some parallels, but wouldn't it be more relatable to read something set in a more modern time period?
That's fair.
Yeah.
But remember that Tom Sawyer has been captivating readers for over a century, and there's a reason for that.
Right.
The themes it explores are timeless.
Okay.
Friendship adventure, that push and pull between following the rules and forging your own path.
Yeah.
These are things we all experience regardless of when or where we grew up.
Okay, you're making me think, but I'm curious about the length.
Right.
I don't have a ton of free time.
Sure.
Is it a long read?
Not at all.
Okay.
It's under 300 pages
All right.
and broken up into short chapters.
Okay.
So it's easy to pick up and put down whenever you have a few minutes.
Right.
Plus the language is so engaging that you'll probably find yourself flying through it.
That's encouraging. You know, before we go any further, I'm realizing there's something I haven't even considered.
Okay.
I've seen so many movie adaptations of Tom Sawyer, but I've never read the book.
Right.
Do those movies actually do the story justice?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Some of them do a decent job,
Okay.
especially the older ones, like the 1938 version with Tommy Kelly as Tom.
Uh-huh.
It really captures the spirit of the book,
Right.
but the book goes deeper into Tom's thoughts,
Right.
his motivations, his relationships.
Mm-hmm.
There's a richness to the story that you just can't fully capture on film.
I see what you're saying. It sounds like the book offers a more nuanced perspective than the movies.
Yeah.
But I have to ask, is there anything about Tom Sawyer that might be a turnoff for a modern reader like me?
Well, the one thing that might take some adjusting to is the dialect. Twain uses a lot of regional slang and colloquialisms that were common in the American South in the 19th century.
Right.
It can be a bit jarring at first,
Yeah.
but it also adds authenticity and humor to the story.
I can see that could be a challenge.
Yeah,
But you're saying it's worth pushing through.
absolutely. The dialect is part of what makes Tom Sawyer so unique and memorable.
I see.
It's a reminder that language is constantly evolving.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be a fun challenge to immerse yourself in a different way of speaking.
Okay. You've given me a lot to think about.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see Tom Sawyer as more than just a dusty old classic. It sounds like there's a lot of depth and humor to it,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe even some surprising relevance to today's world.
Exactly.
All right, I'm intrigued, but before I commit to reading it, tell me more about the main character, Tom Sawyer.
Okay.
What's he really like?
He's not your typical goody-two-shoes hero.
Okay.
He's mischievous and always looking for an adventure.
Uh-huh.
He's the kind of kid who would rather play hooky than go to school.
Right.
The kind who's always getting into trouble, much to the chagrin of his Aunt Polly.
I see.
But underneath all that mischief,
Yeah.
he's also got a good heart.
Okay.
He's loyal to his friends,
Hmm.
and he has a strong sense of justice, even if he doesn't always follow the rules.
Okay, he sounds like a bit of a handful.
Yeah, he can be.
But is he someone I can actually root for?
You'd be surprised.
Okay.
He makes a lot of mistakes, but he also learns from them.
Right.
He's constantly testing boundaries and pushing the limits of what's acceptable.
Uh-huh.
But through those experiences, he develops a stronger sense of empathy and compassion.
Okay.
Think about the scene where he testifies to save Muff Potter.
Right.
Even though it puts him at risk,
Mhm.
he knows it's the right thing to do,
Yeah.
even though it goes against his own self-interest.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
It shows he's not just a selfish troublemaker.
Right.
He's capable of acting with courage and integrity.
Exactly.
But didn't you mention something about his friend Huckleberry Finn?
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
Huck Finn is a key character in Tom Sawyer.
Uh-huh.
He's Tom's best friend, the town outsider.
Right.
He doesn't have a family.
Okay.
He doesn't go to school.
Right.
And he's looked down upon by most of the adults in town. But to Tom, Huck represents freedom and unconventionality.
Mm-hmm.
Their friendship is a big part of what makes the story so compelling.
So their friendship adds another layer to the story?
Definitely.
Okay.
Their dynamic really embodies that tension between childhood innocence and the harsh realities of the adult world.
Okay, now I'm starting to see why Tom Sawyer has resonated with readers for so long.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like it goes beyond just a fun adventure story.
Right.
There's a real depth to the characters and the themes.
You're getting it.
Yeah.
And that's why it's still worth reading today.
Okay.
It offers insights into human nature that are as relevant now as they were back then.
I'm definitely more intrigued than I was before we started this deep dive,
Good.
but I still have a few questions.
I'm happy to answer them. Fire away.
No,
What
no.
else are you curious about?
Well, you mentioned that Tom Sawyer explores the idea of morality.
Mm-hmm.
Can you elaborate on that a bit?
Sure.
I'm interested in how a book written so long ago
Yeah.
can still be relevant to ethical questions today.
That's a great question. It's fascinating how Twain uses Tom's adventures to touch upon these deeper moral issues.
Okay.
On the surface, it's all fun and games,
Right.
but there's this constant undercurrent of right and wrong,
Mm-hmm.
guilt and redemption.
Can you give me a specific example?
Think about when Tom and Huck witness Injun Joe commit murder.
Mm-hmm.
They're terrified,
Right.
but they also grapple with the weight of that knowledge.
Yeah.
They know they should tell the truth,
Right.
but they're also scared of the consequences.
Yeah.
It forces them and the reader to confront these tough questions
Mm-hmm.
about responsibility and the courage it takes to do what's right.
So even though it's a children's book,
Right.
it doesn't shy away from those difficult moral dilemmas.
Not at all. And that's what makes it so engaging.
Right.
We see Tom wrestle with his conscience,
Mm-hmm.
make mistakes,
Right.
and ultimately try to make amends.
Yeah.
It's a process of moral development that's relatable even for adults.
It sounds like there's a lot to unpack there.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to admit, I'm still a little hesitant about the historical setting.
Okay.
Won't it feel completely foreign to me as a modern reader?
Actually, one of the things that surprised me when I revisited Tom Sawyer was how much it felt like a time capsule of everyday life in the 19th century.
Yeah.
Twain's descriptions are so vivid and detailed that you almost feel transported back in time.
What do you mean?
We'll take the scene where Tom and his friends are trading their treasures. It's like a glimpse into a pre-internet marketplace.
Right.
Dead cats, marbles, bits of string.
Yeah.
It's hilarious and bizarre.
Right.
But it also reveals how kids entertain themselves and interacted with each other in a world without technology.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
It's like you're saying, the book can be both entertaining and historically insightful.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And it's not just about the objects.
Okay.
It's about the social dynamics, the rituals, the beliefs.
Right.
All those things that make up a culture. And in some ways, it makes you appreciate how much and how little has changed over time.
I'm starting to get excited about the possibility of experiencing that through Tom Sawyer's eyes.
Yeah.
But wouldn't it be easier to just watch a movie adaptation?
You could, but you'd be missing out on the richness of Twain's language.
Okay.
And his nuanced character portrayals.
Right.
Reading the book is like getting inside Tom's head, understanding his motivations, his fears, his dreams. You just don't get that same level of depth from a movie adaptation.
So the book offers a more intimate and layered experience.
Absolutely. Plus, you get to savor Twain's wit and humor at your own pace.
Yeah.
His writing is full of these little gems that might go unnoticed in a movie adaptation.
I see your point. It sounds like the book offers a more immersive and rewarding experience overall.
I think so.
But I'm curious, what makes Tom Sawyer stand out from other classic books about childhood? You mentioned Little Women earlier.
Right.
Are there any other comparisons that come to mind?
You know, it's interesting that you bring that up.
Yeah.
Someone once compared Tom Sawyer to a historical reality show.
Really? That's an unexpected comparison.
I know, right? But think about it.
Okay.
You've got this group of kids navigating social dynamics, dealing with rivalries, making decisions that have real consequences. It's all very relatable, even in a historical context.
I can see the parallel.
Yeah.
But if Tom Sawyer is like a reality show,
yeah,
what kind of reality show would it be?
Well, it wouldn't be one of those over-the-top sensationalized shows.
Okay.
It would be more like a character-driven documentary.
Right.
Focusing on the everyday lives of these kids, their adventures, their struggles, their triumphs.
So it's about those universal experiences that resonate with people regardless of time or place.
Exactly. And that's part of what makes Tom Sawyer so enduring.
Right.
It taps into something fundamental about the human experience, even within its specific historical setting.
Yeah.
It's a coming-of-age story that transcends generations.
I like the sound of that. It makes me think of other classic coming-of-age stories, like Catcher in the Rye.
Right.
Would you say there are similarities between Holden Caulfield and Tom Sawyer?
There are definitely some interesting parallels.
Okay.
Both Holden and Tom are navigating that tricky transition between childhood and adulthood. They're both rebellious in their own ways, questioning the rules and expectations of society.
Yeah.
They're both searching for authenticity and meaning in a world that often feels phony and disillusioning.
But Holden Caulfield is a much more cynical and angsty character than Tom Sawyer, right?
That's true. Holden is definitely more jaded and disillusioned, whereas Tom still retains a sense of wonder and adventure.
Right.
But I think both characters ultimately grapple with similar questions. Who am I? What do I believe in? Where do I fit in?
It's fascinating to think about how those same questions can be explored in such different ways.
Yeah.
Across different time periods and literary styles.
And that's the power of literature, isn't it?
Right.
It gives us a window into different perspectives, different experiences, and ultimately helps us understand ourselves a little better.
You've definitely made me think differently about Tom Sawyer.
Good.
I'm starting to see it as more than just a lighthearted adventure story.
Right?
It sounds like a book that can spark some deep conversations.
Yeah.
About morality, society, and even our own personal journeys.
And hopefully it can also inspire us to tap into that sense of childlike wonder and adventure that we sometimes lose sight of as adults.
I appreciate you sharing your insights with me. I'm definitely feeling more inclined to give Tom Sawyer a try.
I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. It's a book that has a lot to offer, even for modern readers.
Before we wrap up, can you tell me a little more about the author?
Okay.
Mark Twain. What was he like as a person?
Mark Twain was a fascinating character in his own right. He was a humorist, a satirist, a social commentator, a traveler, a lecturer. The list goes on.
Yeah.
He had a sharp wit
Yeah.
and a keen eye for observing human nature,
Right.
which shines through in his writing. He wasn't afraid to tackle controversial topics, and he often used humor to expose hypocrisy and challenge societal norms.
So he was kind of a rebel himself.
In many ways, yes. He was definitely a free spirit who didn't conform to expectations.
Right.
And that independent streak is reflected in his characters, especially Tom Sawyer.
That makes me even more curious to read his work.
Yeah.
I like the idea of getting to know an author who wasn't afraid to challenge the status quo.
I think you'll find that Twain's work is full of surprises.
Okay.
He's a master storyteller, but he's also a deep thinker.
Right.
Who raises important questions about humanity and the world around us.
I'm starting to feel like I've gotten to know Mark Twain a little bit through our conversation today.
Yeah, me too.
Well, I have to say, you've convinced me to add The Adventures of Tom Sawyer to my reading list.
Awesome.
I'm excited to dive in and experience it for myself.
I think you'll really enjoy it. It's a book that has stood the test of time for a reason.
I'm looking forward to it. But before I start reading, I have one final question for you.
What's that?
If you could sum up Tom Sawyer in one sentence, what would it be?
The Adventures of Tom Sawyer is a timeless tale of childhood adventure, moral awakening, and the enduring power of the human spirit.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
I'm officially sold. Now, where can I get my hands on a copy?
You can find it at most bookstores or online retailers.
Okay.
It's a classic that's readily available in various formats.
Perfect. I'm going to go find a copy right now. Thanks for guiding me through this deep dive.
You're welcome.
It's been incredibly helpful and insightful.
I'm glad to hear that.
I'm sure we'll have plenty more to discuss once I've finished reading it.
Definitely.
Perhaps we can even do a deep dive on Huckleberry Finn next.
I'd love that.
Yeah.
Until then, happy reading.
And to all our listeners out there, we'd love to hear your thoughts on Tom Sawyer. Have you read it? Did you enjoy it? What insights did you glean from the story? Share your thoughts with us on social media or through our website. We're always eager to continue the conversation.
And who knows, maybe your insights will inspire our next deep dive. Until then, keep exploring, keep reading, and keep those adventurous spirits alive.
You know, it's funny. We've been talking about Tom Sawyer as this classic piece of literature.
Right.
But it was originally written for kids. Do you think kids today would still enjoy it?
I think so. The themes of adventure, friendship, and rebellion are timeless.
Right.
And resonate with kids of all generations.
But wouldn't they find the language and the historical setting a bit off-putting?
It's possible, but I think a good reader can see past those things.
Okay.
And connect with the core of the story.
Yeah.
Plus, it might even spark their curiosity about history and make them appreciate how different life was back then.
I could see that. It's like you're saying Tom Sawyer can be a gateway to learning about the past in a fun and engaging way.
Exactly.
And it can also spark some interesting conversations between kids and adults about the values and beliefs of different eras.
It could.
It sounds like there's a lot of potential for intergenerational connection through this book. But I have to ask.
Yeah.
Wouldn't there be some concerns about the portrayal of race and violence in the book?
Those are valid concerns.
Right.
And it's important for parents and educators to address them thoughtfully.
Yeah.
The book does reflect the prejudices of its time, but it also provides an opportunity to discuss those issues openly and honestly.
So it's not about shying away from those difficult topics,
right,
but using them as a springboard for meaningful conversations.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about putting the book in its historical context.
I see.
And using it as a tool for critical thinking and reflection.
I appreciate that perspective. It's a reminder that even classic literature can be complex and challenging. But that's part of what makes it so valuable.
Right.
It forces us to confront difficult issues and engage in meaningful dialogue.
And that's what makes the reading experience so enriching. It's not just about passively absorbing information. But actively wrestling with ideas and perspectives.
You know, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm realizing there's something really powerful about experiencing a story through a child's eyes. It's like we get to tap into that sense of wonder and possibility that we often lose as adults.
Absolutely. And Tom Sawyer does a brilliant job of capturing that childlike perspective.
Right.
It reminds us of a time when the world felt full of adventure and endless possibilities.
It makes me want to revisit my own childhood memories. And maybe even try to see the world through my inner child's eyes.
I think that's a wonderful idea. Sometimes we get so caught up in the responsibilities and complexities of adulthood that we forget the simple joys of exploration and imagination.
Well, I have to say, you've given me a lot to think about today.
Good. I'm
gone from being hesitant about reading Tom Sawyer to feeling genuinely excited about it.
I'm so glad to hear that. It's a book that holds a special place in my heart. And I hope it will for you too.
I'm sure it will. And to all our listeners out there, if you're looking for a classic that will transport you back to your childhood, spark your imagination, and maybe even challenge your perspectives, I highly recommend giving The Adventures of Tom Sawyer a try.
Absolutely.
You might be surprised by how much it resonates with you, even in today's world.
And who knows, maybe you'll even be inspired to go on a little adventure of your own.
Right.
Just be sure to leave the dead cats at home.
That's probably a good idea. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. We hope you've enjoyed exploring this classic with us.